Look, I have been doing this job for 17 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything the combat arenas could throw at me. I am Jolix, third-generation sports commentator for the Reckon Broadcasting Collective, and let me tell you something. I have watched Thorian berserkers tear each other apart with their bare claws. I have seen Zelkoth warriors fight until their exoskeletons cracked and their inner fluids painted the sand purple. I have commentated matches where the cleanup crews needed 3 full rotations just to scrape what was left of the losers off the arena floor. But this was going to be something special, or spectacularly stupid. Honestly, at that moment I was betting on stupid. The grand arena of Corthus Prime stretched out before me like the gaping maw of some ancient beast, and tonight, all 60,000 seats were packed tighter than a cargo hold during refugee season. The crowd was not here for a sporting event. Oh no. They were here for blood, for violence, for that primal satisfaction that comes from watching someone else get absolutely destroyed while you sit safely behind reinforced barriers sipping overpriced fermented beverages. The arena floor itself was a circular expanse of crimson sand, 200 meters across, imported at ridiculous expense from the death world of Sarkala. Why crimson sand, you ask? Because regular sand shows blood too easily, apparently. The architects wanted the crowd to really have to look for those delightful splatter patterns. Thoughtful, right? Above the arena, holographic displays the size of spacecraft flickered and pulsed with advertisements, betting odds, and slow-motion replays of previous matches. The air thrummed with the bass-heavy music that the younger species seemed to love, all percussion and synthetic screeching that made my secondary hearing membranes ache. My broadcast booth hung suspended 50 meters above the killing floor, giving me a perfect view of everything. The technical team scurried around behind me, checking camera drones and audio feeds, while I reviewed my notes on tonight's main event, and what an event it was supposed to be. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all recognized genders and species classifications, I began, my voice amplified across every speaker in the arena. Welcome to Championship Night at the Grand Arena of Corthus Prime. The crowd roared. 60,000 voices, representing at least 40 different species, all united in their desire to watch something die tonight. It was almost beautiful in its simplicity. Really, tonight we have a very special match for you. Our reigning champion, the unstoppable, the undefeated, the absolutely terrifying Kravik the Destroyer. The entrance gates on the eastern side exploded outward in a shower of pyrotechnic fire. And there he was. Kravik stood 8 feet tall if he stood an inch, his reptilian body covered in scales that gleamed like polished obsidian under the arena lights. His species, the Korthax, were notorious for 2 things: their complete lack of empathy and their disturbing enjoyment of close-quarters violence. Kravik embodied both traits magnificently. He stalked into the arena like he owned it, because frankly he did. Those massive arms ended in clawed hands that had personally ended 43 lives in this very arena. His tail, thick as a support beam, dragged behind him, leaving a groove in the sand. When he opened his mouth to roar at the crowd, I counted 72 teeth, each one serrated and stained with the memory of previous victims. The crowd went absolutely insane. They loved him. They loved the spectacle of him. They loved knowing that whoever faced him tonight was probably going to leave in multiple containers. 43 victories, I continued, playing to the audience's bloodlust. 43 opponents have entered this arena against Kravik. 43 opponents have, well, let us just say they did not walk out. 14 species represented, 3 former champions destroyed, and tonight, Kravik faces his 44th challenge. The betting boards lit up across the arena. Kravik's odds sat at 1 to 23. Not great for the gamblers, but that was what happened when you had a champion this dominant. Nobody was betting against him. Nobody with any functioning brain tissue. Anyway, and now, the challenger. I tried to inject some dramatic tension into my voice, but honestly, I was already reading the prepared obituary notes the production team had loaded into my system. From the recently contacted species known as humanity, representing the planet Earth, Maya Torres. The western gates opened, and I swear on my ancestral egg clutch, the crowd went silent for exactly 2.3 seconds before erupting into laughter. She was tiny. Absolutely tiny. Maybe 5.5 feet tall, which put her a full 2.5 feet shorter than Kravik. She wore simple combat attire, nothing fancy, just dark flexible material that looked like it might stop a blade if you were very lucky and your opponent was very weak. Her skin was that peculiar brown shade that some humans had, and her black hair was pulled back into a practical bun. No armor, no visible weapons, No ceremonial war paint or intimidation displays. She just walked calmly toward the center of the arena like she was going to a business appointment. "Oh, this is rich," I said, not bothering to hide my amusement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am looking at the official measurements here, and our human challenger weighs in at 142 pounds. That is, for context, approximately 68% of what I had for lunch yesterday." More laughter from the crowd. Even some of the other human spectators scattered throughout the stands looked uncomfortable. One of them, a male human in the front row, had his face in his hands. The betting boards went completely insane. Odds against Maya Torres shot up to 500 to 1. Some brave or foolish souls started putting money on her anyway. Not because they thought she would win, mind you, but because if by some astronomical miracle she did win, they would retire wealthy. Kravik looked at her and laughed. It was a horrible sound, like grinding metal mixed with a dying animal's scream. He spread his arms wide, displaying his full wingspan, a classic intimidation gesture, his claws extended fully, each one gleaming and sharp enough to slice through steel plating. Maya Torres did not react. She just stood there, 20 meters from the champion, her face completely neutral, her hands hung loosely at her sides. She was not even in a combat stance. "I have to be honest with you folks," I said, trying to maintain my professional composure. "In all my years commentating, I have never seen such a mismatch. I am genuinely concerned we are about to witness something that might actually qualify as a war crime under 3 different galactic conventions." The crowd loved it. They were here for blood, and blood they would get. Just, probably human blood, which apparently was red. How quaint. The referee, a mechanical drone that could not be bribed or intimidated, floated to the center of the arena. Its synthesized voice echoed across the sand. "Combatants, this is a standard challenge match. Victory by death, surrender, or incapacitation. Medical teams are standing by. Protective barriers are active. May the strongest survive." Kravik roared again, slamming his tail against the sand hard enough to create a small crater. Maya Torres said nothing. Did nothing. Just stood there with those dark eyes fixed on the champion, her breathing steady and slow. The drone's voice counted down. 3, 2, 1, begin. And that was when I realized something was very, very wrong with my understanding of humans. Kravik did not waste time with subtlety. Why would he? He outweighed his opponent by at least 300 pounds, had natural weapons that could shred reinforced hull plating, and possessed a kill record that spoke for itself. He charged forward like a freight transport with anger management issues, his claws extended, his jaws open wide enough to bite a human torso clean in half. The crowd screamed their approval. This was what they paid for. This was the moment where the absurd delusion of human competitiveness would meet cold, violent reality. I leaned forward in my booth, already preparing my commentary for the inevitable. And Kravik moves in for the kill, folks. This should be over in approximately 3.5 seconds based on his average engagement time with smaller opponents. And honestly, I'm impressed the human is not running. Though I suppose there is nowhere to run in an arena, so perhaps she is simply accepting her fate with, "Oh wait, what? She moved." No, that is not accurate. She did not move. Move implies a visible transition from one position to another. What Maya Torres did was somehow occupy a different space than she had been occupying a fraction of a second earlier. Kravik's claws swept through the air where her head had been, missing by perhaps 2 inches, and she was simply standing 3 feet to the left, her expression unchanged, her breathing still steady. "Lucky dodge," I announced, recovering my professional composure. "The human gets a brief reprieve, but let us be realistic here, folks. You cannot dodge forever." Kravik has fought opponents who were faster, stronger, and significantly more durable than this little human, and they all ended up as organic confetti. It is only a matter of time. Kravik spun with surprising speed for something his size, his tail whipping around at knee height. It was a classic move, one I had seen him use to shatter leg bones and leave opponents crawling helplessly while he finished them off at his leisure. The tail moved fast enough to create a small sonic boom, kicking up a wave of crimson sand. Maya Torres stepped over it, just lifted her foot, let the tail pass beneath and set it back down. The crowd's cheering became confused. A few people actually stopped shouting to watch more carefully. Another dodge, and I will admit, folks, this human has better reflexes than I initially gave her credit for, I said, checking my sensors to make sure they were functioning properly. They were. But reflexes alone do not win fights. You need strength. You need aggression. You need the will to hurt your opponent before they hurt you. And I am sorry, But looking at this human standing there like she is waiting for a transit shuttle, I am just not seeing the killer instinct. Kravik was getting annoyed now. I could tell by the way his crest had fully extended and his scales had darkened to an even deeper black. He feinted left, then lunged right, his claws aimed at her midsection in a disemboweling strike that had killed 18 previous opponents. Maya Torres leaned backward, just slightly, and those claws passed so close to her abdomen that they actually cut through her shirt, but not her skin, not even close to her skin. She still had not struck back, not once. She just stood there, evading, her face showing about as much emotion as a service drone. Okay, this is getting weird, I admitted, and I heard a few chuckles from the crowd. The human is dodging. Yes, but she is not attacking, not even trying to attack. Is this some kind of human cultural thing? Do they have religious prohibitions against offensive violence? Because if so, I have some bad news about what happens to people who only play defense in a combat arena. Kravik roared in frustration and unleashed a combination attack that I had seen him use to finish off a Thorian warrior 3 months ago. Claw/high, claw/low, tail sweep, bite attack and finishing with a double-handed slam. 5 attacks in 2 seconds. Pure overwhelming offense. Maya Torres avoided all 5 without breaking eye contact with him. The crowd had gone noticeably quieter now. This was not what they had paid to see. They wanted blood, wanted a quick, brutal finish, wanted to watch the tiny human learn why you do not step into an arena with a champion who has 43 kills to his name. Instead, they were watching something that was starting to look less like a fight and more like a very one-sided training exercise. I am checking the official rules right now, I said, letting my sarcasm flow freely, because I am fairly certain you actually have to hit your opponent at some point to win a match. The human seems to be under the impression that this is some kind of elaborate dodging exhibition. Newsflash, Maya Torres, the point is to hurt him, not to dance around him like a particularly evasive insect. More attacks from Kravik, more impossible evasions from Maya. She moved with absolute minimal effort, never wasting motion, never showing off, just simple, efficient, physics-defying movements that took her exactly where she needed to be to not get hit. I noticed something odd about her eyes. They were not focused on Kravik's claws or his teeth or even his center mass. They were locked on his eyes, unblinking with an intensity that was starting to make me uncomfortable even from 50 meters away in a protected booth. Kravik noticed it too. I could see it in the way his attacks were becoming less precise, more wild. He was not just frustrated anymore. He was starting to look rattled. This human, this tiny fragile creature that should have been dead 15 times by now, was staring him down like she was the predator and he was the prey. The betting boards flickered. Maya's odds improved slightly. 500 to 1 became 470 to 1. Not a huge change, but enough to show that some people in the crowd were starting to wonder if they had misjudged something fundamental here. Come on, Kravik, someone shouted from the stands. Just hit her already. Kill the human, another voice added. What are you waiting for? The crowd was getting angry now. Angry at Kravik for not finishing this quickly. Angry at Maya for making their champion look foolish. Angry at themselves for expecting easy entertainment, and instead getting something strange and uncomfortable. Kravik backed up 3 steps, his chest heaving with exertion. He had been attacking non-stop for almost 2 full minutes, and had not landed a single blow. His scales were slick with sweat. His claws had sand and dust caked on them from striking the arena floor when he missed. Maya Torres had not broken a sweat. Her breathing had not changed. Her expression had not shifted even slightly. She had not spoken a single word since entering the arena. That silence, I was beginning to realize, was somehow more terrifying than any battle cry or threat could have been. My combat analysis system, top-of-the-line Vrekan military hardware that cost more than most species make in a lifetime, kept throwing error messages. It could not properly track Maya Torres. Oh, it could see her, obviously. The cameras worked fine, but the predictive algorithms, the ones that calculated trajectory and momentum and predicted where a fighter would move next, they just kept failing. According to my sensors, she should not be able to move that way. The human body, based on all available data we had purchased from Earth's information brokers, simply did not work like that. Their joints had limitations, their muscles had maximum contraction speed, their nervous systems had measurable reaction times. Maya Torres was breaking every single limitation like they were polite suggestions rather than biological laws. Folks, I am going to be honest with you, I said, my professional demeanor cracking slightly. I have commentated over 4,000 matches in my career. I have watched Zelkoth Hive warriors move in perfect synchronization. I have seen Thorian berserkers fight through injuries that would kill most species 3 times over. I have never, and I mean never, seen anything move quite like this human is moving right now. Kravik had shifted tactics. Instead of wild aggressive rushes, he was trying to be strategic, using his superior reach and strength to control space, to corner her against the arena walls where her mobility would be limited. It was actually smart thinking. It was the right approach. It did not matter. Every time he thought he had her trapped, she was not there anymore. She slipped through gaps that should not have existed, flowing around his attacks like water around stone. And that silence, that absolute unnerving silence from her, was starting to affect everyone in the arena. The crowd had stopped cheering almost entirely. 60,000 beings watching in increasingly uncomfortable quiet as their champion, their undefeated destroyer of 43 opponents, failed again and again and again to land even a glancing blow on a human female who weighed less than his left arm. Maybe she is defective, someone shouted from the upper decks, and nervous laughter rippled through sections of the crowd. Maybe he is defective, someone else countered, and the laughter died immediately. Kravik heard that. I saw his crest flatten against his skull in what I recognized as shame response in his species. He snarled, a deep resonating sound that vibrated through the arena's structure, and launched himself forward with everything he had. This was not strategy anymore. This was rage, pure unfiltered ego-bruised rage. He attacked with a flurry of strikes that should have been impossible to evade in sequence. High claw slash, low claw slash, tail sweep, jumping bite attack, ground slam with both fists, repeat, repeat again, faster each time. His scales were darkening to pitch black now, a sign that his species' combat hormones had flooded his system. He was operating on pure predatory instinct. Maya Torres weaved through the attacks like she was performing choreographed dance moves. Duck, sidestep, lean, pivot, step back, step forward. Her movements were so smooth they almost looked casual. She never stumbled, never looked off balance, never showed even a hint of strain, and she still had not attacked him. Not once, not even a counterstrike or a defensive push, just evasion. Perfect, maddening, impossible evasion. This is psychological warfare, I said suddenly, the realization hitting me like a cargo container. The human is not trying to beat Kravik, she is trying to break him. She wants him to exhaust himself, to make mistakes, to lose his tactical edge. And folks, I am sad to report, it is working. Look at our champion. Look at the sloppiness creeping into his form, the overextension on his strikes, the poor recovery time. He is tired, he is frustrated, and he is making errors that would get him killed against an opponent who was actually fighting back. Kravik's breathing had become labored. His attacks, while still dangerous, were coming slower, less precise. He was burning through his energy reserves at an unsustainable rate while Maya looked like she could do this for another 3 hours without breaking a sweat. The betting boards were going crazy now. Maya's odds had improved to 200 to 1, then 150 to 1. Money was moving in directions that should not be possible. People were starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, this human knew something that the rest of the galaxy did not. I am pulling up human combat records from the information databases, I said, frantically searching through my system. Let me see here. Humans have apparently been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Multiple martial arts systems, boxing, wrestling, something called jiu-jitsu, another thing called Muay Thai. Oh, this is interesting. Humans have a concept called going the distance. It means surviving against a stronger opponent through superior endurance and technique. They have entire fighting philosophies built around the idea that the bigger, stronger opponent can be defeated by simply not being where their attacks land. I paused, watching Maya avoid another combination attack that should have killed her twice. I think, and I cannot believe I am saying this, but I think we might have severely underestimated what humans are capable of in combat situations. The crowd's mood had shifted from bloodthirsty excitement to something darker. Anger, resentment. They did not want to watch their champion get humiliated. They wanted violence, yes, but violence where the natural order was maintained. Big scary champion kills small weak challenger. That was the script. That was how it was supposed to go. This human was rewriting the script in real time, and nobody liked it.
Hit her!
Someone screamed. Do something, you useless reptile, another voice added. Kravik was beyond hearing them now. He had entered a state I had only seen a handful of times before in the arena, a berserker fugue where conscious thought shut down and pure animal aggression took over. His attacks became completely wild, all power and no precision, his claws ripping through empty air, his tail creating craters in the sand, his roars echoing off the arena walls. Maya Torres dodged every single attack, her expression never changing, her silence never breaking. And then I saw something in Kravik's eyes that made my secondary heart skip a beat. It was not rage anymore. It was not frustration. It was fear, raw, primal, prey animal fear, because somewhere in his hormone-flooded brain, a terrible truth was forcing its way through. He could not touch her. He would never touch her. She was letting him tire himself out, letting him waste his energy, letting him make a fool of himself in front of 60,000 spectators, and when he was exhausted, when he had nothing left, then and only then would she do whatever she had come here to do. Maya Torres was not the prey in this situation. She had never been the prey. The silence from her was not fear or submission. It was the silence of an apex predator that did not need to posture or threaten because it knew with absolute certainty that it was superior to everything around it. Kravik stumbled, his left leg nearly giving out from exhaustion. His breathing came in ragged gasps. His scales had faded to a pale gray, a sign of extreme physical stress in his species. Maya Torres stood 10 feet away from him, still completely fresh, still utterly silent, still watching him with those dark, unblinking eyes. The crowd had gone deathly quiet. 60,000 beings holding their collective breath, waiting for whatever was about to happen next. And I realized with a cold certainty that made my manipulator tentacles go numb, that I was about to witness something that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed humanity. "Ladies and gentlemen," I whispered into my microphone, my voice barely audible, "I think we have made a terrible mistake." Kravik pulled himself together for one final assault. I could see it building in the way his muscles tensed, the way his claws dug into the sand, the way his entire body coiled like a spring compressed past its safety limit. This was going to be everything he had left. His signature move, the same attack that had killed his last 12 opponents in a single strike. He roared. And this time it was different. This was not a roar of rage or frustration. This was the sound of a creature that knew it was about to die if it did not win in the next 10 seconds. A cornered animal's last desperate gamble. "Here it comes, folks," I said, my voice tense. The Devastator combination. Kravik launches himself into the air, builds momentum with his tail, and comes down with both claws extended in a strike that generates enough force to crack reinforced concrete. I have seen this move cut opponents completely in half. If it connects, this match is over instantly. Kravik launched himself upward with a powerful thrust of his legs and tail, 8 feet of scaled muscle and weaponized biology sailing through the air, both clawed hands extended, mouth open, every bit of his remaining strength focused into a single descending strike aimed at where Maya Torres stood. She did not move. For the first time since the match began, she held her ground. The crowd gasped. Finally, she was going to get hit. The natural order would be restored. Big defeats small. Strong destroys weak. The way it had always been. Kravik descended like divine judgment, his shadow falling over Maya, his claws aimed at her head and shoulders, ready to end this humiliation in one glorious explosion of violence. Maya Torres stepped forward, into the attack rather than away from it, and placed her right palm against Kravik's chest. That was it. One palm, flat against his sternum. No wind up. No visible force. No dramatic stance or battle cry. Just a simple palm placement that looked like she was checking his heartbeat. Kravik stopped. Completely. Instantly. 8 feet of pure muscle and rage halted in midair like he had hit an invisible wall. His momentum did not gradually decrease. It just ended. All of it. In a fraction of a second that should have been physically impossible. Then he dropped. Not fell. Dropped. Like a puppet with cut strings. His body hit the sand and did not move except for weak spasming twitches in his limbs. The arena was silent. 60,000 beings and not one of them made a sound. "What?" I said, my voice cracking. "What just happened? What did she do? I am running the replay, I am looking at the sensor data, and I do not understand what I just witnessed." My combat analysis system was screaming alerts. "Medical emergency, critical injuries detected. Dispatch medical teams immediately." The holographic medical readout appeared in my booth, visible only to me and the technical crew. What I saw made my primary and secondary hearts skip synchronized beats. Kravik's sternum was fractured in 6 places, 3 ribs were broken, His right lung had partially collapsed. His primary heart had severe bruising and minor tearing in the outer wall. His secondary heart was in arrhythmia. Internal bleeding in his thoracic cavity. Severe trauma to his diaphragm muscle. She had done that with a palm strike that looked like a gentle push. Medical teams to the arena floor now, I shouted, abandoning all pretense of professional commentary. We have critical injuries. I repeat, critical injuries to the champion. The medical drones swarmed out from their alcoves, but Maya Torres held up one hand, stopping them. They hovered uncertainly, programmed to respond to life-threatening injuries but also programmed to respect the sanctity of the arena during an official match. Maya walked slowly over to where Kravik lay gasping for air. His scales faded to a pale sickly gray. She knelt down beside him, bringing her face close to his. The cameras zoomed in automatically, projecting the image across every screen in the arena. For the first time since entering the arena, Maya Torres spoke. Her voice was quiet, barely picked up by the audio sensors, but the silence was so complete that everyone heard her words clearly. You demanded a fight, she said, her tone conversational, almost gentle. I gave you a lesson. The difference between those two things is something you will have time to think about while you heal. Remember this. I was holding back. I am always holding back. We all are. She stood up, looked directly into the nearest camera, and for just a moment I saw something in her eyes that made every prey instinct I did not know I possessed scream at me to run. Then her expression went neutral again, and she turned and walked toward the exit. The medical drones rushed in the moment she cleared the area, their scanners working frantically, stabilization fields deploying around Kravik's damaged body. The crowd watched in stunned silence as their undefeated champion, the killer of 43 opponents, was carefully loaded onto an emergency medical platform and rushed out of the arena. I sat in my booth staring at my screens, trying to process what I had just witnessed. My hands, all four of them, were shaking. I need to check something, I said to no one in particular. My manipulator tentacles flew across the keyboard, pulling up every database I had access to. Human military records, combat footage, historical data. What I found made me wish I had never looked. Maya Torres was not just some random human who wandered into an arena. She was a veteran of the human collective war, retired, supposedly. She had served in something called the Special Operations Division. Her combat record was partially classified, but what I could access was terrifying. Confirmed eliminations, classified. Missions completed, classified. Specializations, close quarters combat, infiltration, psychological warfare, hand-to-hand combat instruction, hand-to-hand combat instruction. She taught other humans how to fight, and we had put her in an arena like she was some kind of entertainment. I pulled up more records, my primary brain working frantically while my secondary brain started to panic. Human combat doctrine, human training methods, human philosophy of warfare. There was a phrase that kept appearing in their military documents, something called proportional response, the concept that you only use as much force as the situation requires, that you hold back your full capabilities unless absolutely necessary. Maya Torres had been using proportional response against Kravik. She had calculated exactly how much force was needed to stop him without killing him. That palm strike had been precisely calibrated to incapacitate, not to execute. She could have killed him at any point in that match. From the very first second, she had chosen not to. The crowd was starting to file out, quiet and subdued. No cheering, no celebration, no excited discussions about the violence they had witnessed. Just silent, uncomfortable beings who had come expecting easy entertainment, and instead learned something about the universe that they were not prepared to know. The betting boards showed final odds. Maya Torres, winner by technical knockout. Those few souls who had bet on her at 500 to 1 were now very wealthy. I doubted they felt good about it. I watched the footage again. That moment when Maya placed her palm against Kravik's chest, frame by frame, enhanced resolution, every analytical tool I had. There was no wind-up, no visible tensing of muscles, no dramatic power-gathering stance. She had simply moved her hand forward and transferred force into his body with such precision that she had damaged specific organs while leaving his outer scales barely bruised. That level of control was not natural. It was not instinctive. It was trained, refined over years, probably decades of practice, against opponents who could actually challenge her. Kravik had never stood a chance. None of us had known it except Maya. The arena lights began to dim. The cleanup crews moved in to rake the sand, to prepare for tomorrow's matches. Business as usual. Except it was not usual. Not anymore. Because now we knew. Humans were not the weak, fragile species we had assumed them to be when they joined the galactic community. They were something far more dangerous. They were predators who had learned to hide their teeth, warriors who smiled and spoke softly because they did not need to prove anything to anyone. They knew what they were capable of. They had always known. We were the ones who had been ignorant. Maya Torres walked out of the grand arena of Corthus Prime in complete silence, and somewhere in the galaxy I suspected other humans were watching this broadcast and smiling quietly to themselves. 3 days later, I sat in my apartment surrounded by data files and historical records, nursing a drink that was doing absolutely nothing to calm my nerves. Kravik would live. The medical report said full recovery in 6 weeks, though his career as a champion was probably over. Not because of the physical damage, though that was severe enough. No, it was the psychological damage that would never heal. He had looked into the eyes of something that terrified him on a level his species had not experienced in thousands of years of evolution. The arena management sent out an official statement this morning. All matches involving human participants were permanently cancelled. Not suspended, cancelled. They were not taking chances after what happened. Apparently several other arenas across 3 systems had made the same decision within hours of our broadcast. I had spent the last 72 hours doing research that I should have done before ever commenting on a human fighter. The Battle of Proxima Station, the Siege of Arcturus 7, the liberation of the Telvanni colonies, every single conflict where humans had been involved. The casualty ratios were horrifying, not for the humans, for everyone else. They had a saying in their military, something I found buried in a historical document: walk softly and carry a big stick. It meant projecting peace while maintaining overwhelming capability for violence. They had been doing that with the entire galaxy since first contact. Maya Torres had given us a demonstration of that philosophy. She walked softly into our arena. She did not roar, did not threaten, did not posture. And when the moment came, she struck with such precision and control that it was somehow more terrifying than if she had just killed Kravik outright, because killing him would have been easy for her. We all knew that now. I took another drink and pulled up my recording software. Time to do a follow-up commentary piece. The galaxy deserved to know what we had learned, even if I was not entirely sure how to explain it without sounding absolutely insane. Hello, folks. This is Jolix, and you probably remember me from 3 days ago when I commentated what I thought was going to be a simple championship match. I began letting my exhaustion show in my voice. Turns out I was commentating something very different. A lesson. A warning, a reminder that humans are not what we thought they were. I paused, gathering my thoughts. We wanted to see humans bleed. We wanted to watch them learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. We wanted easy violence and simple entertainment. Instead, we learned why apex predators do not need to announce themselves before they strike. They just do it. Quietly. Efficiently. With absolute certainty in their capabilities. I looked at the frozen image of Maya Torres on my screen. That moment right before she struck Kravik, her face calm and completely controlled. The galaxy is a dangerous place, folks. It always has been. But I think we just discovered that the most dangerous species in it are the ones who smile, who negotiate, who extend hands in friendship, all while knowing they could end you in a heartbeat if they chose to. I raised my glass toward the screen in a mock salute. So here is to humanity. May they continue to walk softly. Because now that we have seen what happens when they actually use that stick they have been carrying, I really hope they never stop holding back. I ended the recording and sat in silence. Somewhere on Earth, Maya Torres was probably going about her day, completely unbothered by the chaos she had caused. And that, more than anything else, was what truly terrified me.